Jake had been staring at the same four walls of his old apartment for 3 years. After his last relationship ended badly, he knew it was time for a change. The job at the design company was going well, and he'd saved enough money to move somewhere better. When he found the apartment listing online, it seemed perfect. Modern building, good neighborhood, and the rent wasn't too crazy. Moving day was exhausting. Box after box up 3 flights of stairs. Jake was sweating and tired when he heard footsteps on the stairs above him. A woman appeared, carrying what looked like fresh coffee and a warm smile. "You must be the new guy in 3B, she said, extending the coffee toward him. "I'm Lily from upstairs. Thought you might need some fuel for all this moving." Jake looked up, wiping sweat from his forehead. Lily was beautiful in a natural way. Long brown hair, bright eyes, and a friendly demeanor that immediately put him at ease. She was probably in her late 20s, dressed casually but stylishly. "That's really thoughtful," Jake said, accepting the coffee gratefully. "I'm Jake, and you're absolutely right about needing fuel." "I remember when I moved in 2 years ago," Lily laughed. "I thought I was going to collapse right here on these stairs." The elevator was broken that day too. They talked for a few minutes while Jake took a break. Lily seemed genuinely interested in getting to know her new neighbor. She asked about his work, mentioned some good restaurants nearby, and offered to help if he needed anything. When she finally headed back upstairs, Jake felt lucky to have such a nice neighbor. Over the next few days, Lily proved to be incredibly helpful. She knocked on his door the second evening with a plate of homemade cookies, saying she'd made too many. The third day, she offered to show him where the best grocery store was located. Jake found himself looking forward to these small interactions. "You know, there's this great pizza place just 2 blocks down," Lily mentioned as they walked back from the store. "They make everything fresh. Maybe we could check it out sometime." Jake smiled. "That sounds good. I'm still figuring out all the food options around here." "Perfect," Lily said, her eyes lighting up. "I love helping people settle into the neighborhood. It can be overwhelming at first." What impressed Jake most was how thoughtful Lily seemed to be. When he mentioned liking a particular type of coffee during one conversation, she showed up the next morning with that exact brand from a local cafe. When he casually mentioned wanting to find a good gym, she had 3 recommendations ready the same day. "How do you know so much about everything around here?" Jake asked one afternoon as they chatted in the hallway. "Oh, I'm just observant," Lily replied with a laugh. "Plus, I work from home, so I notice things, like how you leave for work every morning at exactly 8:15. Jake paused for a moment. He hadn't realized his schedule was that predictable, but he supposed it made sense. Neighbors in apartment buildings probably noticed each other's routines naturally. As the first week passed, Jake found himself thinking about Lily more often. She was attractive, smart, and seemed genuinely interested in his life. Unlike his ex-girlfriend, who had been critical and distant, Lily was warm and supportive. She laughed at his jokes and seemed fascinated by his work as a graphic designer. "You must be so creative," she said one evening, when they bumped into each other at the mailboxes. "I'd love to see some of your designs sometime." "Sure," Jake replied. "Most of my recent stuff is for local businesses. Nothing too exciting, but I enjoy it." "I bet it's amazing," Lily said. "You seem like someone who puts a lot of thought into everything you do." Jake felt flattered. It had been months since anyone had shown this much interest in his work or life, in general. His confidence, which had taken a hit after the breakup, was slowly returning. The only slightly odd thing Jake noticed was how often Lily seemed to be around when he needed something. When his internet wasn't working, she appeared in the hallway just as he was about to call the service company. When he was struggling with a heavy package, she showed up to help. When he mentioned being hungry but not wanting to cook, she happened to have extra takeout from her favorite restaurant. "You have incredible timing," Jake told her after she'd helped him carry groceries up the stairs. "Just lucky, I guess," Lily said with a bright smile. "Or maybe we're just getting in sync as neighbors." By the end of his second week in the building, Jake was seriously considering asking Lily out on a proper date. She seemed interested, and they clearly enjoyed each other's company. The only thing holding him back was wanting to make sure he was ready for something new after his recent breakup. One Friday evening, as Jake was settling in to watch a movie, he heard a knock on his door. It was Lily holding a bottle of wine. "I hope you don't mind me stopping by," she said. "I opened this wine, but it's too much for just me. Thought you might want to share." Jake hesitated for just a moment, then smiled. "Come on in. I was just about to watch something mindless anyway." As Lily stepped into his apartment, Jake noticed her eyes quickly scanning the room, taking in details about his furniture, his books, the photos on his wall. It was natural curiosity, he figured. He'd probably do the same thing if invited into someone's place for the first time. They spent the evening talking and laughing, sharing stories about their lives. Lily was easy to talk to, and Jake felt more relaxed than he had in months. When she finally left around 11, Jake was convinced that moving to this building had been one of his best decisions ever. As he got ready for bed that night, Jake thought about how nice it was to have someone like Lily in his life. She was caring, interesting, and seemed to genuinely enjoy his company. For the first time since his breakup, he felt optimistic about the possibility of starting something new with someone special. 3 weeks into living in his new apartment, Jake started noticing things that made him feel a little uncomfortable. It began with small stuff that he tried to ignore, but the feeling kept growing stronger. Lily had started showing up everywhere. He went. At first, Jake thought it was just coincidence. When he went to grab coffee at his usual spot on Tuesday morning, there she was, sitting at a corner table with her laptop. She waved him over with a big smile. "What are the chances?" she said, closing her laptop quickly. "I was just thinking about you. How's work going?" Jake sat down, still surprised to see her. "It's going well. I didn't know you came to this place." "Oh, I love trying new coffee shops," Lily replied. "This one has such a cozy feeling, don't you think?" The thing was, Jake had been coming to this cafe for 2 weeks straight, and he'd never seen her there before. But he pushed the thought away. Maybe she was just exploring the neighborhood like he was. The next day, the same thing happened at the grocery store. Jake was picking up some vegetables when he felt someone touch his arm. It was Lily again, appearing right next to him in the produce section. "Jake?" "Perfect timing," she said, her hand still resting on his arm. "I was just wondering what you were planning to cook this week. Maybe I could give you some recipe ideas." Her touch lingered longer than it should have. Jake felt a little awkward but didn't want to be rude. After all, she was being friendly and helpful. "Just some basic stuff," he said, gently moving his arm away. "I'm not much of a cook." "You should let me make dinner for you sometime," Lily suggested, moving closer. "I love cooking for people I care about." That evening, Jake found a small gift bag hanging on his door handle. Inside was a cookbook with a note that read, "Thought this might help. From your upstairs neighbor who believes in you. Lily." The cookbook was nice, but something about the note felt too personal. They'd known each other for less than a month, yet she was talking about believing in him and caring about him. Jake tried to shake off the weird feeling. Things got stranger over the weekend. Jake decided to meet his friend Tom at a sports bar across town to watch the game. He'd never mentioned this place to Lily, and it was pretty far from their neighborhood. Halfway through the first quarter, he spotted familiar brown hair at the bar. His heart skipped when he realized it was Lily, sitting alone and occasionally glancing in his direction. "Dude, who's that woman who keeps looking over here?" Tom asked during a commercial break. "That's my neighbor," Jake said quietly. "I had no idea she'd be here." "She's been staring at our table for like 20 minutes, Tom observed. "That's kind of weird, man." Jake felt embarrassed and confused. When Lily finally approached their table during halftime, she acted like running into them was the most natural thing in the world. "Jake, what a small world," she said brightly. "I was just meeting a friend here, but she canceled last minute. Mind if I join you guys?" Tom looked at Jake with raised eyebrows. Jake felt trapped but didn't know how to say no without seeming mean. "Sure," he said reluctantly. "Lily, this is Tom. Tom, meet Lily." Lily immediately inserted herself into their conversation. asking Tom lots of questions about his friendship with Jake. She wanted to know how long they'd known each other, what Jake was like in college, what kind of women he usually dated. Tom seemed uncomfortable with all the personal questions, but Lily kept pushing. After she left to use the restroom, Tom leaned over to Jake. "Dude, that woman is intense. She's asking questions like she's interviewing me for a job or something." "I know," Jake admitted. "She's been really friendly since I moved in, but lately it feels like too much." "Be careful, man," Tom warned. "I've seen this kind of thing before. Some people don't understand boundaries." The following Monday, Jake's concerns grew worse. He came home from work to find his apartment door unlocked. His heart raced as he slowly pushed it open, not sure what he might find inside. "Hello?" he called out nervously. "Oh, Jake. You're home early," came Lily's voice from his kitchen. Jake walked in to find her standing by his sink, drying her hands with one of his towels. She was wearing rubber gloves and had clearly been cleaning his apartment. "Lily, what are you doing in here? How did you get in?" "The landlord let me in," she said casually, as if breaking into his apartment was completely normal. "I told him. I smelled gas coming from your unit and was worried about a leak. He gave me the key to check it out." Jake looked around his apartment. Everything had been cleaned and organized. His dirty dishes were done, his bed was made, and his clothes had been folded and put away. "You cleaned my entire apartment?" he asked, feeling a mix of confusion and anger. "I know you've been working so hard lately," Lily said, taking off the rubber gloves. "I thought you could use some help. Don't you love it? Everything's so much neater now." "Lily, you can't just come into my apartment without asking," Jake said firmly. "This isn't okay." For the first time since he'd known her, Lily's smile faltered. Her eyes flashed with something that looked like hurt and anger. "I was trying to do something nice for you," she said, her voice getting sharper. "Most people would be grateful. I appreciate the thought, but this crosses a line." Jake continued. "You need to ask before coming into my personal space." Lily stared at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then her smile returned, but it looked forced and fake. "You're absolutely right," she said, though her tone suggested she didn't mean it. "I got carried away trying to help. It won't happen again." After she left, Jake immediately called his landlord to confirm her story about the gas leak. The landlord had no record of any complaint or giving anyone access to Jake's apartment. When Jake mentioned this, the landlord seemed concerned and promised to look into it. That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about how Lily had been in his apartment, touching his things, going through his belongings. The idea made his skin crawl. He realized that Tom was right. Lily didn't understand boundaries, and her behavior was becoming genuinely concerning. Jake decided he couldn't wait any longer to take action. The next morning, he called his building manager and explained everything that had been happening with Lily. He showed Mr. Peterson all the documentation he'd been keeping, photos, notes, and timestamps of the strange incidents. "This is concerning," Mr. Peterson said, looking through Jake's evidence. "I had no idea things had gotten this serious. I can speak with her about respecting boundaries, but honestly, what you're describing might need police involvement." "I was hoping to handle this without getting the police involved," Jake admitted. "But she's affecting my work and personal life. I don't know what else to do." Mr. Peterson nodded thoughtfully. "Let me try talking to her first. Sometimes people don't realize how their behavior is coming across. If that doesn't work, we can discuss other options." That afternoon, Jake felt hopeful that maybe the situation would finally get resolved, but his optimism was short-lived. Around 6 in the evening, he heard aggressive knocking on his door. When he looked through the peephole, he saw Lily standing in the hallway, and she looked furious. "Jake, we need to talk right now," she called through the door. Jake's heart started racing. He'd never seen Lily angry before, and something about her tone made him nervous about opening the door. "What do you want to talk about?" he called back. "Don't pretend you don't know," Lily said, her voice getting louder. "Mr. Peterson came to see me today. How could you lie about me like that?" Jake realized that Mr. Peterson's conversation with Lily had backfired completely. Instead of making her understand boundaries, it had made her more upset and confrontational. "I didn't lie about anything," Jake replied through the door. "I just told him what's been happening." "You made me sound crazy," Lily shouted. "You told him I was harassing you when all I've done is try to be a good neighbor and friend. This is how you repay kindness?" Other neighbors were starting to come out of their apartments to see what the commotion was about. Jake felt embarrassed, but also scared. Lily was creating a scene in front of everyone. "Lily, please lower your voice," Jake said. "We can talk about this calmly." "Don't tell me what to do," she snapped back. "You think you can just move in here and ruin my reputation? I've lived in this building for 2 years without any problems." The knocking became more aggressive, and Jake worried she might damage his door. He reluctantly decided to open it, thinking that maybe seeing other neighbors watching would make her calm down. But when Jake opened the door, Lily immediately pushed past him into his apartment. "We're going to settle this right now," she said, spinning around to face him. Her eyes looked wild, and Jake realized how much bigger this problem had become. "Lily, you need to leave," Jake said firmly, keeping the door open. "I don't want to have this conversation." "Too bad," she replied. "I'm not leaving until you call Mr. Peterson and tell him you made everything up." Jake looked at her in disbelief. "I'm not going to lie for you. What you've been doing isn't normal behavior. What I've been doing is caring about someone who obviously doesn't appreciate it," Lily said, her voice rising again. "I've been nothing but helpful and supportive, and this is how you treat me?" "You broke into my apartment," Jake reminded her. "You followed me on dates and ruined my relationship. You've been calling my workplace and my friends. That's not being helpful, that's being intrusive." Lily's expression changed, and for a moment Jake saw something that genuinely scared him. Her face went completely cold, and she stared at him with an intensity that made his skin crawl. "You don't get to decide what our relationship means," she said quietly. "I know you better than anyone else does. I've been watching you, learning about you, caring for you. We have something special." "We don't have anything," Jake said, stepping toward the open door. "You're my neighbor, that's it. I think you need to talk to someone about these feelings you're having." Lily laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. "You think I'm crazy? Don't you? That's what you told Mr. Peterson, isn't it?" Before Jake could respond, Lily walked over to his bookshelf and picked up a framed photo of him with his family. She stared at it for a long moment, then looked back at him. "I know everything about you, Jake," she said softly. "I know you call your mom every Sunday at 2 o'clock. I know you order Chinese food every Friday night from the same restaurant. I know you stay up too late watching old movies when you're stressed." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. All of those things were true, but they weren't things he'd ever told her directly. "How do you know all that?" he asked. "Because I pay attention to people I care about," Lily replied, still holding his family photo. "I notice things. I remember details. That's what people do when they love someone." The word love hit Jake like a punch to the stomach. This woman, who he'd known for barely 2 months, was claiming to love him based on information she'd gathered by spying on him. "Lily, you need professional help," Jake said as gently as he could. "What you're describing isn't love, it's obsession." Lily's face went dark again. She carefully placed the photo back on the shelf. But Jake noticed her hands were shaking. "Everyone always says that," she whispered. "Every time I care about someone, they say I'm obsessed. But I'm not crazy. I just love deeper than other people do." Jake realized this wasn't the first time Lily had behaved this way with someone. He wondered how many other people had been in his position, dealing with her overwhelming attention and refusal to accept boundaries. "I think you should go now," Jake said, moving closer to the door. Lily looked at him for a long moment, then walked slowly toward the exit. But as she passed him, she stopped and stood very close to him. "This isn't over," she said quietly. "You can't just throw away what we have because you're scared of real connection." After she left, Jake immediately called the police non-emergency line to report the incident. The officer he spoke with was sympathetic, but explained that unless Lily made direct threats or caused property damage, there wasn't much they could do legally. "Keep documenting everything," the officer advised. If her behavior escalates further, we'll have more options to help you. That night, Jake barely slept. Every sound in the building made him jump, wondering if Lily was trying to get back into his apartment. He realized that her behavior was only going to get worse, and he started seriously considering whether he needed to move again, even though he'd just gotten settled. Jake woke up around 3 in the morning to a sound that made his blood run cold. Someone was moving around in his apartment. He lay perfectly still in bed, listening carefully to make sure he wasn't imagining things. Footsteps were definitely coming from his living room. His heart pounded as he quietly reached for his phone and turned on the flashlight. Very slowly, he got out of bed and crept toward his bedroom door. When he peered around the corner, he saw a figure standing near his window in the darkness. "Hello, Jake," came Lily's voice from across the room. Jake's entire body went cold, with fear. "Lily, how did you get in here?" "That doesn't matter right now," she replied calmly. "We need to talk." Jake quickly turned on the overhead light, and what he saw made him feel sick. Lily was standing in his living room wearing only a long coat that she'd apparently taken off and left on his couch. She was staring directly at him with an expression that was both intense and strangely peaceful. "You need to leave right now," Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. "This is breaking and entering. I'm calling the police." "Don't," Lily said softly. "Just listen to me first." She started walking toward him, and Jake backed away instinctively. The whole situation felt surreal and terrifying. "We belong together, Jake," Lily continued. "I know you've been fighting it, but deep down, you feel the same connection I do." "I don't feel any connection," Jake said firmly. "What you're doing is illegal and wrong." Lily ignored his words and kept moving closer. "I've been patient with you. I've tried to give you space to figure things out on your own, but you're not seeing clearly." Jake realized he needed to get out of his apartment immediately. Lily was obviously having some kind of psychological break, and he didn't know what she might do next. "I'm leaving," he announced, moving toward his front door. "No, you're not," Lily said, and something in her tone made Jake stop. "We're going to work this out right now." Jake looked back at her and saw that her peaceful expression had changed into something much more intense and determined. "Lily, you're scaring me," he said honestly. "Please just put your coat back on and go home. We can talk tomorrow when you're feeling better." "I'm feeling perfectly fine," she replied. "This is the clearest I've felt in weeks. I'm tired of pretending that what we have isn't real." Jake made a decision. He quickly grabbed his keys and phone from the counter and headed for the door. But before he could open it, Lily moved to block his path. "Don't leave me," she said. And for the first time, her voice sounded desperate instead of confident. "Everyone always leaves me when things get serious. But you're different. You understand me." "I don't understand any of this," Jake said. "You're acting like we have some kind of relationship, but we don't. We're just neighbors who've had a few conversations." Lily's eyes filled with tears, but they looked more like tears of frustration than sadness. "You're lying to yourself," she insisted. "I've seen how you look at me. I've felt the connection between us. You can't fake that kind of chemistry." Jake realized that arguing with her wasn't going to work. She had created an entire fantasy relationship in her mind, and nothing he said was going to convince her it wasn't real. "Okay," he said carefully. "Maybe you're right that there's been some kind of connection. But this isn't the right way to handle it. Breaking into my apartment in the middle of the night is going to push me away, not bring us closer." Lily studied his face, trying to decide if he was being sincere or just trying to get rid of her. "You really mean that?" she asked hopefully. "I mean that we need to talk about this properly," Jake replied. "But not like this. Not tonight. You should go home and get some rest, and tomorrow we can sit down and have a real conversation about everything." For a moment, Lily looked like she might agree, but then her expression hardened again. "You're just trying to get me to leave so you can call the police," she said. "You think I'm stupid." Jake saw his opportunity when Lily stepped slightly away from the door. He quickly moved past her and got the door open. "I'm going to stay at my friend's house tonight," he called back to her. "When I come back tomorrow, I want you to be gone." He ran down the stairs and out of the building as fast as he could, not stopping until he reached his car. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely get the key in the ignition. Jake drove straight to Tom's house and called the police from there. This time, they took the situation much more seriously. Breaking and entering was a clear crime, and Jake had enough evidence of Lily's escalating behavior to get a restraining order. The next morning, police officers accompanied Jake back to his apartment to make sure Lily was gone and to help him gather evidence. They found that she had somehow gotten a copy of his apartment key made, which explained how she'd been getting. And over the following weeks, Jake learned that Lily had been arrested and was getting court-ordered psychological treatment. The building manager helped him change his locks and implemented better security measures for the entire building. Jake eventually decided to move to a different part of the city anyway. The whole experience had left him feeling unsafe and anxious in his own home. It took months of therapy before he felt comfortable dating again or trusting new people in his life. Looking back, Jake realized how many warning signs he'd ignored early on because Lily seemed helpful and attractive. He learned to trust his instincts better and to take it seriously when someone's behavior made him uncomfortable, even if they seemed to have good intentions. The experience taught him that obsession can look like love from the outside, but real love respects boundaries and doesn't require fear, manipulation, or control. Jake was grateful that the situation hadn't escalated further and that he'd been able to get help before Lily's behavior became even more dangerous.